The main message of the book is that A, you don't have to wait for someone to give you permission to start with change, and B, that change takes time. It's an evolution, not a revolution. And so therefore we need to start with little steps.
We started the book project, Designing Tomorrow, as a way of giving people a starting point on how to address things like the climate crisis, reducing waste, improving product longevity, reducing their energy and material intensity for the things that they're designing and putting out into the world.
What was really amazing working with Shapeshifters was that they didn't just do the layout design and just do the illustrations, but we really went through this co-design process with them together. So we had meetings throughout the whole process where we talked about the book chapter by chapter, and we talked about the different concepts that we covered in each of the chapters and how they could be brought to life through the illustrations.
We were very lucky to be able to work with the authors from the very beginning, before they even wrote anything about the book, and design it with them and craft the visuals in a way that really informed the content, and the content was informing the visuals as well.
We normally work in a very co-design method where we like to work with people rather than, for somebody, and this was definitely the case.
As we were going through these illustrations and we had our regular co-design meetings, they would sketch out illustrations as Steve and I would be talking about, this is what we want to convey in this chapter and this is the story we want to tell here. And they would sketch it out and it would pop up on the screen, or we'd be using a whiteboard, and then we could look up and go like, oh yeah, wow, this is interesting. So this is what it looks like visualized. And then again, we could have a discussion about the visualization and decide whether we wanted to tweak it, or sometimes really go back to the beginning and start thinking about the narrative in a different way, and then that would lead to a completely different visualization. And so that's how we ended up with this really beautiful visual storytelling throughout the book.
The cover design looks epic because the content is epic. There is a lot of stuff that's in there that really makes you think, that really makes you question what you're doing right now.
In some ways, not only the cover, but also the diagrams in the book and the whole visual style of the book tries to create that balance where there's some kind of future looming, but at the same time, there's a hope in that future. And so the chapter illustrations really try to tackle that balance.
Yeah, I think initially, some of the chapter illustrations, I remember some of the feedback from the publisher was that it seemed dark, but then there's always hope. So the chapter illustrations encapsulate that darkness, but they also encapsulate that hope.
Working on this book, and also in conversation with our publisher, we were really mindful and thinking carefully about the balance between the text and the visuals in this book. Because we wanted to tell a story, and we wanted to describe different tools and strategies and how people can use them in their day-to-day work. But we also wanted to make sure that it's visually engaging. There are a few components to that. One is that you can tell a story through pictures. So there are some visuals that illustrate what we're saying in the text. And as people flick through the book, they can sort of get a quick idea of that story. And then if they're interested, they can read the text and learn more about that particular visual. But there's also a lot of diagrams. And so we used visuals to help better understand those diagrams that are being described in the text and the meaning. And that's quite an art, actually, to tell a diagram with just a few colors and lines that displays often quite complex data. Then there are also illustrations, the chapter illustrations, and we spent quite a lot of time working on those, which really help to break up the chapters, but also they're meant to be a bit intriguing, maybe pique an interest in the reader. So they usually visualize either the subtitle of the chapter or they pick up on a particular story that we describe in the chapter. And they're very abstract, so that people hopefully curious about what is this chapter illustration about, what is this chapter about, and then maybe also have this moment, this aha moment when they read the chapter and go like, oh, this is what the illustration meant maybe, or it's almost something you discover, like in a good script where you're not told everything up front, but you sort of discover things as you go along.
Working with Shapeshifters on this project was a real joy. So It was professional, it was fun, it was efficient, and I think we arrived with the book at a much better place as a result of that collaboration and that dynamic that we created with the team over time than we could ever have achieved working on our own. And certainly I think what we would have achieved had we been working with a more traditional, less collaborative pair of designers.